Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Climb, where we're going to be talking about 2020 planning, how to make a plan for the next year. Not planning to plan. This is real actionable stuff. But before we get into that, I want to talk about what the Digital Mastermind is. The Digital Mastermind is a group of digital agencies, marketers, technologists, agency owners, where we share tips, tricks, tools, mentorship. It's a peer group. We have bi-weekly calls. We have yearly meetings. It's really gnarly, great speakers. So if you want to grow your agency, go to digitalmastermind.com or shoot me an email, john@digitalmastermind.com. And another quick thing too, because today I'm going to announce we replaced 2,536 on the Inc. 5000 list. That would not have been possible without the Digital Mastermind group. Sharing all of the information with my peers. That's where I met my business partner and my great friend and co-host, Dave. So I can't say enough about the group. We're not making any money on this. We just literally do this out of the love, enjoyment, and the power of collaboration when great minds get together, which is a mastermind. So like I said, shoot me an email, john@digitalmastermind.com, or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. Check it out for yourself. Submit a contact form. We'd love to hear from you. All right. So we're going to get into today, which is about planning, right? So this is a bit interesting because we've had a year that if you made a plan in 2019 that was super strict and super strict where it didn't offer the flexibility, then your 2020 plan would be shot. You wouldn't be able to execute on it. So Dave, I want to bring you out here because I know we've talked a ton about planning. And I know you have different opinions on it, and I think this will be good, more of a debate type of standpoint, right? Because we're both action oriented, but we both believe that there's a certain level of planning that has to take place, and I think you might be on the lesser side. So go ahead and share your opinion before we get into this, and I want to see how this fleshes out between the both of us.
So in my view, I think you need to have a long-term goal, and then you need to be very fluid with your routes to achieve that goal. And things you need to be able to be agile when things change. Because if you plan out too rigidly, I mean, in Corona, this whole coronavirus like blew up plans, like destroyed plans.
Yeah.
But there's tons of other things that aren't Corona level, aren't pandemic level, that's going to screw up your plans as well. So I've been to some like planning sessions that have been hosted here locally. And I mean, it was down to the like specific, how much you want to generate, like what tasks you're going to do, like all this stuff. And I like filled out this worksheet. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done.
That's people just trying to sell things.
Correct. I just tossed that to the side. I got in the car and I never looked at it again.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be very agile in your planning with a long-term goal in mind.
Okay, perfect. So I think we'll, for the most part, be aligned in this because the disclaimer and the note is you have to be flexible, because if you're not going to be flexible, then you're creating a shitty plan, right? So there's that. It has to be simple, because if it's not brutally simple and realistic, it's not going to be followed. You're going to be discouraged. Whoever's supposed to follow you is going to be discouraged. And when it comes to leadership, you have to move at a pace that the people that are following you can follow you. So if you think about a mountain, right? If you're going, over that mountain and you're cresting it before the people that are following you, they're not going to see which road that you took. So
this mountain?
Exactly, like the climb, right? This journey. I think the other thing too that's important is process, right? So how much of the downfalls can be created with better process, and process doesn't take away from like spontaneity. It's supposed to deliver more work, but I see too many people that are making plans where the process would have taken care of a lot of the things that they were planning for, and it's as if yesterday didn't happen, where they just keep repeating the same things. So I would separate your plan and your process, as two different things, right? So this is the disclaimer.
So for anyone out there watching us live right now, message, comment, let us know. Do Do you plan in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Like, let us know what your plans do when you think about an annual plan. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say out there. But, you know, process, what I think of planning, you know, what really popped into my head is when I used to work for CSX, which is like an old school Fortune 500 company, logistics, just old school corporate, right? And we used to have meetings about the meetings we're about to have. Like, that blew my mind. Planning to plan. I just,
it's the worst. Yeah.
Absolutely hate the thought of planning to plan. Like, come on, let's have a meeting to talk about what we're going to do for this planning this year. Like,
imagine what a procrastinator, though, that mid-level manager or whatnot, you know, is. It's just like, all right, you know what? I got the idea. I'll just have a meeting that will tell them about the meeting that we're going to need to have, and maybe I'll get the information I need from that.
I mean, that's why corporate America moves so slow. That's why the smaller, agile. That's why, you know, digital agencies exist, because we get shit done faster than the corporate entity can do, because we don't need to plan. So,
yeah. No, I think that's great feedback. And I think the first step in planning, depending on this is I guess depending on wherever you're at. I was going to say an agency just starting out, but maybe this could apply to them as well. But we're talking to, you know, agencies that have been in business for a few years. Is you have to answer the question, how the hell did we do, right? And that question is reviewing and assessing, you know, wins and losses, right? So looking at your numbers. And the number is right, depending on what you're tracking. Sales, right? That one's near and dear to me. Employee turnover, though, that should be something that you take a really hard look at, whether you're doing exit interviews or not. Is something. But all right, did you lose, you know, specific staff, and is there a cause for it? Right. Client turnover too, right? Client turnover and retention, also something to review and assess. Another one that I don't think a lot of agencies are looking at, and this comes from something that I had an aha moment years ago, was internal projects, stalled ones versus launched ones. Just why did we not do that? That's the worst thing too. When you have an idea, we're like, oh yeah, we were going to do that. Well, why didn't we do that? I think it's a simple scoring. So like, why didn't we do that? Just make a notation of it. Something I use Evernote. I just search past old notes. Look for things. I did a little bit of that in prep, seeing what I did to plan previously for this. But that was one that came out, the internal project stalled and launched. I think it's important to know that.
Sure.
Also assessing is competitors, right? If you have a peer group, find out what other people are doing. This is when a comparison can be very, very powerful. All right, what are they, you know, what were they achieving that I did? What's that?
You talking growth percentages or like what are you
right? Whatever it is that you need to review and assess based on what you want to accomplish, which gets us close to the next step. But I would create some type of review and assessment. If it's stuff you have tracked previously based on goals, all right, well, that's pretty cut and dry. If it's something new, I would establish, all right, what are those, you know, those milestones? What are the things that you can track based on what you want to move forward with? And you can, based on your plan, you can formulate those later, right? Because one of the steps is measurement in here. But get an idea of the data that you have and just look back, whether you want to brain dump or do whatever it is that you want to do. Get a clear picture of what happened previously, 1, 2, or 3 years ahead. Or I'm sorry, 1, 2, or 3 years previously.
When you were running the agency by yourself as Revital, what was your most important KPI?
Sales.
And I assume that's true today?
Yeah. Sales is a powerful thing. I'd say that was the most important one.
And are you talking new sales, new business sales, or just total sales?
I'm sorry, it broke up there.
You're talking new sales, like new business sales, or total sales? And what I'm calling the difference is, you know, like retainer, monthly recurring revenue versus new business coming into the business.
Yep. It was mainly just sales in general, right? And then, of course, you know, new clients, I would say, was subordinate to that. But revenue, sales was the main driver. So
I agree with that. That is basically your main KPI to find out if you're running a business properly.
Right.
But that number doesn't tell any stories. So I like to look at new business sales as where my future's heading. And
Yeah,
then,
I guess what I'm saying for measurement, previous years, if we're going to compare, it'd be all right, 1, 2, 3 years back. What is our growth rate from those? Okay, so what are new sales? So it'd be new client acquisitions based on the retainer model that we had set up, right? And
yeah,
then I'd say after that, our other thing, trying to think of what we reviewed. It's already been a couple of years based on our planning. Um, Also, we
I
would
mean,
calculate websites launched. We would calculate, client retention rate, and then we would calculate So I guess it was new accounts one that was in there. I think those are the main KPIs that we would go with.
I mean, at the end of the day, as long as I made $1 of profit, which means everybody got paid, every bill was paid, everything was done, and I made $1, that I look at that as a success, right? So
Sure.
ultimately, that's my main KPI. But I want to know how many people new business were coming in, because back in the day, like, our new business was slow, so we had to bust our ass to keep every client we had, because our recurring revenue and that retainer relationship was the most important thing. Where when we lost one, that could have been devastating. Now, as we're growing, and I just want to be able to say it, we just made the Inc. 5000 list, and super kudos to us. But now I'm like, all right, we got to start bringing in new business, because we're growing, and we got to, it's not just about playing defense, but now we're getting a little offensive. So I mean, to me, the most important thing is that new business number coming in, and that's, I guess, the most exciting thing for me. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, but I think number one, it's sales, right? So I guess the way it's hard to separate those. So if you have sales, new business is that you have to bring on new accounts if you want to keep, winning. I know there's some people that believe you have 10 accounts, you have 20 accounts, and then you cut off your last 20%, your management. That, to me, that just seems ridiculous. Like, you have to be continually out there hunting and foraging for the new accounts that you want to pull on. And if you want to get rid of accounts, that's fine or whatever, but I don't necessarily agree with that. Just continue looking for new business. But yeah, so how the hell did we do is number one, right? The review and assess your wins and losses. And just be kind to yourself in that as well. Number two, you can move this up or down a list, but I think it's important to have this high, is defining your purpose. And what I mean by that is not the whole why, but the way that we do this is defining your theme, right? So this year, what is it that you're doing? You can put in there, of course, why are you doing it? What do you want to accomplish? Ours was actually based on the name of this show, The Climb. We started this, I believe, in December of 2019. So when we were doing our planning, we did it a little bit late last year. We're starting it earlier this year. It's August right now. We came up with the theme, the Climb. And that's actually, I can't remember, I'm sorry, it was based on the show, but this is a year of the climb. And we've used this as a mantra. That's why a theme is very important. That's why I have it so high in this list. It's a rallying cry for your team. It's something that your troops can get around. So whatever that word is or phrase, or it should be something that is, thematic, because what it does is it instills a condition, and that condition is something that you can keep pressing. So if you're in a meeting with your team and you want to pull people together, are we climbing is a question that you can ask. You can also throw it out there as a hashtag, whether it's in Slack or whatever channels that you use. And essentially, at the end of the day, our whole framework is built on that. We had some pretty aggressive goals this year, and we're continually working really hard to hit those. But something that we will say internally to ourselves, and it's not just leadership, it's every level of staff, is climb. This is a part of the climb. And are you climbing? So define a theme is number two.
I mean, if you think about the climb and our application of it, I mean, it works so well. I mean, hasn't COVID been that mountain this whole year in 2020? And I mean, climbing that mountain, just that challenge. I mean, that's why I loved the theme. It's there's a challenge in front of us, and whether a pandemic hit or not, we were going to look at 2020 as a year of a challenge to take our business to the next level. And then COVID popped in and said, "Hey, I'll be your mountain." And then we looked at it and said, "All right, time to climb this mountain." I mean, I loved the theme. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what we come up with next year, because I mean, I think the climb is just so well placed.
So fitting.
Yeah, so fitting for this year. And you know, it reminds me of a side story. I played football in high school, and our senior season, our theme to the season, you know how teams come up with a saying or whatnot, was something like "believe in us" or "we believe" or something like that. We lost every game that year. We were just completely terrible. But like a song came at the end of the season after we just got our ass kicked for the last game of the season.
The 12th
a song came on the radio that like had this in the chorus, and we all kind of looked at each other like, "Wow, like this is meant to be." But God, what a grueling, terrible season that was.
Yeah,
we ass kicked every week.
I played high school football too. And I remember there was this one. I think it was like homecoming or something like that. And the other team was beating us so bad. And they're like, "So this is homecoming, huh, boys?" I remember them saying that. It was so patronizing at the time. But it's funny. So football, when we came up with the theme, the climb, I remember John Gruden, and it was the Buccaneers, where they had a season where it was like pound the rock. I can't remember if that was the year they went to Super Bowl. But they had this giant boulder that was in the locker room. Whenever anybody got upset, they would go toward the rock and hit it. I remember too. Just they had all these like sledgehammers. Like that seems a bit like a liability. And also, what if one of those rock chips goes in one of those dudes' eyes?
Well, I was just gonna say, is this the year that somebody actually put an axe in their own foot? Because that's happened in an NFL locker room with just that exact kind of thing. Somebody actually cut themselves with their gimmick.
Yeah, no, it might have been the same year, but yeah, I don't believe that was the Bucs. Yeah, they didn't have. I hope they weren't hitting with hatchets or axes. That just seems completely irresponsible and stupid.
If anyone in our audience knows the answer to that, please let us know.
Yeah. All right. So number three. Number three is laying out goals and objectives. Right. So. To start with goals, it's kind of two parts, keeping goals high level. And they can be some of the points that we touched on earlier, whether that's revenue, new sales, old sales, customer ratings, right? Something, whether it's net promoter score, the customer effort score, or, just satisfaction scores. I think this is something that should be a goal for a lot of companies. Also projects, right? So do you want to launch a new ERP? Do you have a new accounting system? Whatever those high-level goals are, don't have too many of them, just because otherwise it's not going to feed well into your team. It could be as little as 1, 2, or 3. Set whatever those are at a very high level. And I think the best way to separate goals and objectives, right? Because goals are destinations, objectives are the roads to get there. So as Dave mentioned earlier at the top of this, he went to some meeting where somebody sold him one of those worksheets or packets, or it's a connect the dots, build a business empire type of thing, which I don't really agree with. There's way too much touch and feel in this, and you're not just going to follow somebody's bullet planted list that you just fill in blanks with. If that was the case, everybody would be doing this, right? But your objectives do need to be clear, but they also, depending on the size of your team, need to be assigned to somebody. Like, who is the owner of this? Who's accountable? Because right now we're talking about the project management of your business. And like any good project, as I mentioned earlier, keep it simple. But all right, what has to get done so this will be achieved? When does it have to be done? Who owns them? And what are the tasks that are involved? I do not recommend building out this super ornate, detailed thing, because it's going to kill action on the other end, and it's not going to be followed. It might be some mental stimulation you get from it, but it's not going to be productive. But goals, set them high level. Goals are the destination. Objectives are the road to get there. State what those are, and make sure that there's something measurable in there that you can achieve them, and that they're time based.
So your internet just keeps going in and out. So I don't know if you need to try a different Wi-Fi or something, but keep getting choppy. For goals, I mean, my big thing here is, you've got to talk about the difference between personal or individual goals.
Just switched it.
There you go. Company goals. What it sounds like when what I heard is you were talking about like individual goals, somebody owning it, and then those, should be reset quarterly. And then how that applies to the overall goal. Like I don't want a
Yeah, I
company
said high
goal
level goals.
that
I
is
guess it did
trying to
go
sell.
up. It's macro.
Yeah.
It's high level goals.
Right.
1 to 3
Right.
goals for the company. This is what we're going to work on. This is what we're going to achieve.
Yeah. And
Do I need to
for us,
do that again? Was it that bad? Was it like that spotty?
no, but it was noticeable enough, and it was choppy. I mean, we got the gist. No, we're good. The goals I like to keep very, very macro, very high level. And you know what? I guess I'm so defensive in nature. Like I remember our goal for this year was just beat last year. Because I feel like every time we have a dramatic upswing in revenue over a year time, I don't buy it. Like I don't believe it. I don't think it's real. I'm like I always think it's an anomaly. And so when I say let's just beat last year, I'm really just saying prove to me that it's not fake. Like, is this real? Is this our real world now? Because I don't know what. It's maybe a defense mechanism or just I don't want to set myself up for failure or disappointment. But I'm like, nah, that ain't right.
It could be, yeah, defense mechanism to protect from, disappointment. But regardless, as a business and mouths to feed and people counting on us, it has to happen. So I think there is that necessary built-in piece that if we are beating next year, there's automatically a number that gets associated with that, and that's the number that we're working toward. And that should align all the other objectives, right? So new sales, customer retainment, we're going after clutch reviews. And right. I know you really want to talk about the comment that just came in because I said you keep looking over. I know. Hi. Please go ahead.
Right, I'm gonna. This is gonna be a little shout out to one of our employees, Tony, as well. He's a huge Jaguar fan, and your lovely wife messaged in that said Chris Hansen from the Jacksonville Jaguars cut his foot with an axe, and he's a kicker. Like.
He got picked on for the whole Chris Hansen newscast thing too, right? So this is doubling down.
I mean, it's like my annual warning to our entire team, 4th of July and New Year's, where I'm let other people set the fireworks off. You make money with your hands. Do not risk them. That's like if you're swinging an axe by your foot and you're a kicker in the NFL. I mean,
that's just double duty. Yeah, and the name Chris Hansen. I've met a Chris Hansen before that did a great impression of the guy that would catch, that's the guy's name, right? Like he would catch like the pedophiles or whatever. Chris Hansen. Yeah, that's Chris Hansen.
Could be. Yeah. Why don't you have a seat right there?
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he did a great impression of it. He's like, yeah, why don't you have a seat right there? Like, that's cool, man. He's leaning into the punch,
Nice.
Not like an Office Space, the Michael Bolton guy that hates Michael Bolton's music.
Right.
If you leaned in the punch, you just bolted out a song, like it'd be great. Everybody would leave it alone.
Yeah.
All right. So that was a little bit of a tangent there. Thank you. Thank you to my wife, Carolyn. Appreciate it. All right. So I believe we covered that, right? All right. We can move on.
Well, number 4.
Number 4. This is the last one. This isn't a long list, right? So planning should be brutally simple. Measurement, right? It was a sub-point to one of the other ones. How are you going to grade your progress? And, of course, you're looking back at years. Are you going to break it up into quarters? That's what we do. That's what I recommend. And essentially stating this is where you should be by Q1, Q2, etc. I wouldn't recommend putting in backup plans. I believe the best place to do that is just figure it out as you come, because if your plan is realistic enough and flexible enough that you should achieve it, all that's baked in. If you're one of those people that's if this happens and so on and so forth, you're in my opinion making something like way too complicated. You're no longer planning. You're getting into scenario plans.
You're triaging.
Yeah, it's just why are you literally, which I think in some respects can sabotage you, because you're just like, we'll just go ahead and do this. We have that scenario built out. So define how you're measuring success and be super clear on what winning looks like.
Yeah, boom. That's a great point. So my big thing with this, so you kind of touched on it, and I'm going to kind of give an anecdote that like relates to it, but
go ahead and give it.
People so often change their tools or change their things or change their process or methods too quickly. And you have to have the resolve to see it through, because, you know, if you see something that's just not working, okay, you've got to pivot. But if something doesn't feel right yet, work on it. Don't give up on it, because too many people just go, oh, this isn't magic. This didn't magically solve all my problems. Let's give up on it. And that can't be the route. You have to say, all right, I got to stick with this. I got to work. And nothing that you achieve is easy. Or if it is, it's not worth achieving. So, you know.
But it's an interesting thing, though, right? Because that level of objectivity towards something is so subjective, right? And that's difficult. Maybe that was a complicated way to say it. So, for instance, we tell a client, don't judge a marketing campaign if it's anything less than 3 months, right?
Right.
For the most part. There's other extenuating circumstances where you're like, all right, well, that didn't make sense. Sure. So when, like, what is the best form of measurement? There's some things where you're just like, we know this isn't going to work based on the data. Do you put a timetable on it? What do you do?
I would try to look for what other ways that it adds value to the process. Because like I was just thinking for ourselves, like, what about if we came up with a marketing campaign that wasn't bringing in new sales, but it definitely worked as like almost like a PR.
Yeah, like there's sub points and KPIs that you can. It should lead up to a sale, which essentially are the objectives to that goal, right?
I was thinking if we look more professional, like if our brand looks, you know, more, you know, at that level we want to be, and then there's value there, and maybe I'm still okay with running that. Maybe we don't spend as much, but you know, I like being out there. I like interacting with people. And so I would try to find the value there and justify the value. And again, if it looks like ass and doesn't convert, then we just got to scrap it. Then there's nothing to salvage there.
Reminds me of somebody that would pitch that their branding work would like, oh yeah, that's 30% to your top line value. I was like, how do you measure that?
Right.
That's a really bold thing. Like, I mean, that's a huge number. You're working with, you know, Fortune 100 company, get 30% growth based on a branding package. Like, wow. But
so
they're getting sales from it.
This whole topic of measuring, the whole point. I mean, when you go into a university and get a marketing degree, I mean, you know how much of it now is statistics and analytics. And I mean, when you're studying marketing, shouldn't you be focusing on consumer behavior?
Yeah.
And,
you want to hear the irony of what you just said?
Yeah.
When I was in college, you don't want to hear it, or you do want to hear it?
I do want to hear it. I thought you said, do you know the irony of it?
Oh, no. Sorry. When I was in college, I took statistics 2, business statistics. This is, you know, me being transparent and honest, I guess, either 4 times or 5 times. It was to the point that I was paying out-of-state tuition. This is my own money, too. I had to pay my own way through school. And that I just told I did not get along with this guy, right? We didn't get along at all. There was a whole thing about showing your work and all that, which I still have a hard time showing my work. I just do something, right? And in any event, he continually failed me. Well, I was like, dude, I will wash your car. Like, I just don't understand like how this keeps happening. And I would get toward the end, and then it would be a failing grade. And a D was a failing grade. It wasn't passable. Anyway, a new teacher came in. Boom, I passed like that. But to the point that that you're making, more of it should be on psychology. I think that shouldn't be a part of a marketing degree, especially with the software that we have out there now. There's an interpretation of the data piece that's important, but how you go and figure out that data, I think, is more of like a quant analytical piece. And behavior is the most important, and just really understanding the way people think and the way that people connect with messaging and each other is paramount.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Oh, great.
Real quick, what's the percentage of your pass-fail rate? My
pass-fail rate for what?
That class.
Well, it depends. If I passed that out of the 5 times, it'd be 25%. What's that?
20%. 5 times.
And if it was 4 or 5 times, it'd be either 25%, or if it was out of the 5 times, it would be 20%.
All right. I just wanted to make sure if you got passed because of your looks and, you know, this teacher, like, hey, this guy's cute.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it wasn't. I earned it. Okay. I do wonder though if that guy did see all the others and he's like, I didn't like that professor either. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and pass him.
Yeah. How many other people did you see semester after semester?
There were a lot of people that failed that course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a comment here. We got a question for you. Let's see. If one of your goals has become unachievable, what is the best way to bounce back from that? It's a great question.
If one of your goals has become unachievable, what is the way to bounce back from that? Well, I would look at maybe potentially setting a different goal. But if it's something that you truly believe in, let's say that you're like, all right, I want $1 million in my bank account. Like, okay, well, you're making like 20,000 now, and you know you're washing windshields. Okay, well that's possible, but what is probable? I would set for something like, all right, get to 100,000 first. So without knowing what that goal is, I think the important thing is setting one that is more realistic and more achievable. And it's not, I worked with somebody in a planning session one time. They're like, all right, what are all your BHAGs? You can say that, you know, your big, hairy, audacious goal, big, hairy ass, however you want to say that, which is fine. You want to be the best company in the world, or you want to be a billionaire, or you want to, you know, create, you know, 1,000 websites in a year. I think it's setting something that is more realistic based on the resources that you have and that assessment that you've gone through. And that is something that you will achieve. And then, all right, cool. You hit the 100,000. All right, now what's the 250, the 500? This is coming from somebody that one day was like, I want $100 million company. Right.
I was just going to bring that up.
Right.
Like, this sounds just like somebody I know.
But I learned from my experience, right? And it was like, okay, so what is the easiest way to get to $100 million company? It's, all right, becoming a $1 million company, right, and then a $5 million company, and then a $10 million. It's essentially those steps. So I think the unachievable thing is just not realizing that you should have set a smaller goal, a smaller destination.
Yeah, 100%. Because I never even, like where we're at right now, I never had a goal to get here. I never thought it was possible. I never thought when we hit $1 million in revenue, I blew my mind. I never thought we would get there, and I was happy just in my $300,000 world, you know. And then now, you know, where we're at right now, I never thought in a million years we'd get here. But so I guess that's what keeps me happy and what keeps me driven, because it's, you know, it's not setting expectations and failing them. I'm just trying to be better than last year, be better than my previous day, you know, and just keep going after that, because I don't want to set a goal for 10 million. And then in 3 years, we're not there. And then I'm like, well, screw this. You know, we're not doing what I thought we were going to do. Like, I think that's unhealthy.
It could be unhealthy to a point, but I would say I want that, and I'm going to get that. It's something working toward. And if it doesn't happen, right, all the things that you put in place to make that happen should lead to greater things. It's not being judgmental of yourself, like, all right, I failed, or we failed this. It's like, okay, let's keep going. But I think it's important to have the smaller ones that you achieve, right? It's the difference, I think, between a wish and a goal. And there are some things that we could do, like, let's say if we wanted to go that route, that I know I'm not willing to sacrifice. I don't want to be a niche specific business where we only work with companies that clean septic tanks, right? Potentially we could build a $50 to $100 million business developing something, you know, within one of those veins. I respect our team too much, as well as myself, and know that exactly I would get bored. And boredom to me is the most dangerous thing. So it's not the challenge of hanging on that removes all novelty. So I think that's the most important thing. Have your wish, you know, work towards those things, but at the same time, be kind to yourself and don't judge based on the goals that you set.
Well, and if I were to answer Beth's question, I would just say, you know, reset a goal that still is achievable, that is a step towards that unachievable goal. Like, you know, if it becomes unachievable, which I find that hard to believe, you know, what could happen to make it unachievable? Because whatever miraculous thing happened to make that unachievable, you could have the opposite miraculous thing that says, wow, all of a sudden it's achievable. But I would just say reset and still aim at that larger goal, but create something that that you can still achieve. So
yeah, the 100 million, the 5, the 10, the 15, the 20, for sure.
So we got a dual question from Brandon.
Whoa, looking for extra credit. I like it.
Yeah. And this is pretty huge. So I don't know if I can fill up the whole screen here.
Okay.
How do you see the events of 2020 affecting how businesses now do their planning in the future? Let's just start with that one.
Okay. I think this is why I wanted to talk about this today, because I brought this up to somebody. I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about talking about, planning. Like, oh, well, what about COVID? Everything is, like triage and, moment to moment. I was like, yeah, there's some truth to that. But at the end of the day, there's some tenets that everybody should follow to move forward. And it just needs to be flexible enough, right? So to just go through the list, there's, all right, assessing. That's something that you're going to do in a planning situation. Looking back, looking at how you reacted to COVID, right? All right, so defining your theme. Okay, this is essentially what I want to accomplish in this is messaging I'm going to use. All right, so you're laying out your goals and objectives to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, and it's essentially the flexibility in the way that you go about your work to get those things, and measurement. How are you going to grade the progress? That's essentially that. COVID shouldn't change that, and we were hit with COVID, right, as many other agencies were, and it's essentially doubling down on the things that you are good at and what you should do to deliver your work. Make sure that you take care of your clients, make sure that you communicate effectively with your team as well as externally, and make sure that you do everything that you possibly can to deliver on what you promised. If you're doing great work, you need to be absolutely exceptional, because the next guy or gal is not going to be able to do it at the same rate that you are, and be willing to go the distance so you beat them out. This is where things get hyper competitive, and for instance, peer groups sharing with others what's working, what's not. And it's not to a scarcity mindset to take away from them. It's more of an abundance mindset. Is like, all right, how can we think differently together? So the ones that are the best at what they do get more of the lion's share of the work. And if you're not, you can go work for somebody else. You shouldn't be a business owner. That's just the raw truth of it.
All right. And the second part of Brandon's question.
I like the just, all right.
Yeah. I think that's pretty solid. For those businesses that saw their 2020 plans go to hell, then had to go into survival mode, what advice would you give them for planning their 2021 to get some quick early wins?
So through the assessment phase, I think a lot of that's going to be uncovered, right? So what was too rigid in your previous plans? Now, there's horrible things that some people were affected. I don't want to just throw some grandiose thing out there where you were lucky and blessed in a lot of respects. So for instance, if you're in an events management company and there's no events going on, you may have had to make a hard pivot. Restaurants were also suffered by this. So I think there's those types of plans are like, how do you plan to live on a hill and then an earthquake comes and falls off? That's not the type of scenario that we're talking about here. But I think if you're on the edge of what happened, that's where a lot of these plans were going to apply. You can't plan for essentially a plane falling out of the sky and landing on your house. That's what's happened to some of these businesses. So I think for people that potentially had specific verticals that they worked in, or there was types of businesses that may have been affected, how can they plan for this? Go back and assess, right? So look at what happened in 2020, and then how can that play forward in the 2021 year? For instance, maybe you develop a new core value where this is going to be a lame one, but like think outside of the box, right? So if you were super process oriented, rigid in the way that you delivered your business, but now you need to think differently about your business, which you should have done when this happened, that's what can occur. So if you're that events management business, all right, you get into a different space, and whatever that space is, I'm not going to sit there and try to come up with ideas. Or if you're a restaurant, right, and then you are giving all your money to your delivery services, why don't you start your own delivery service so you can, and then also work with the other businesses that are in the area. Think differently about that, and then that can also be part of the DNA, one of your core values as a company moving forward. But that should also be a part of your planning process. Okay, based on what happened here, were we able to start our new delivery business, and what does that do for us? Do we want to start other channels to bring in revenue? Do we want to change who we are as a company? Those are all things that should be discussed in your annual plan, because they're not shiny things. These are channels to drive in revenue, which ultimately should be one of the number one goals if you are a for-profit business.
So that's perfectly in line with what I was going to answer. I would just slightly modify it and say, be ready to do the things that other people aren't ready to do, because everyone in your industry is now, reduced. So now it's time to climb back up. So now you're in hunt mode and you're, like you said, ultra competitive. Now, what are you going to do over and above those other people to claim back your market share and more? So that's what it's all about. If you survive, so if you made it through, you survived. Now it's all about how do you grab as much market share as possible, or more so than you had previously. And so if you're a restaurant, how do you, like you said, I think the creating your own delivery is, because most restaurateurs don't know this, but the Grubhubs, the Uber Eats, the DoorDash, all those services do not make a profit. So they're all 100% VC funded right now. And if that ever falls off, boom, that service disappears. And now what? Now what do you have? So I'm not saying that they're going to disappear over the next 10 years, but I do know that they're going to consolidate just like any other industry. And then the 2 or 3 winners that remain are going to have to move their fees up in order to get to profitability, because ultimately every one of these companies has to eventually get to profitability. And where's that profit going to come out of? The restaurant's cut.
Yeah, they're charging like 35% of, and that's the 30% margin in most restaurants. So you're losing money with some of these deliveries.
And sometimes we call up, during this COVID scenario, we've called up some, and the cost to get food delivered was so ridiculous. I just went and picked it up. I know that's not an option for everybody, but that's already so expensive. So if you could just hire a delivery driver, problem solved, and just build that into your process. Like, elevate your process and your business plan, and then that leads to, hey, start doing some online marketing, and hit, like, a lot of mom and pop restaurants don't understand the value of like advertising on Facebook, and you can actually narrow down your Facebook advertisement to just be from 3 to 5. Those 2 hours before dinner where people are like, oh, I'm hungry. What am I going to eat tonight? You don't have to be buying an ad that runs all day long and just spending money. Just focus it. I want more, bringing it back to goals. I want to increase my delivery food, revenue by 20%. And I'm going to do that by, doing some marketing and growing, that delivery business. So that's my favorite, side note, this is my favorite shit to do right here. Like, give me a problem and let's solve it. Like, let's. Yeah,
the same way. Yeah, it's that's what we call. In our agency, we're solutionists. The other thing too, though, like thinking about problems differently, right? So I know there's agencies that are working with restaurants or hospitality. If you're working with restaurants, if they're good, and it sucks. There's a lot of. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. There's a ton of mediocre restaurants, but there's some really, really great ones as well, right? But for some of the restaurants, one of the thoughts I had is like, all right, if all the money is going into grocery stores, right? We don't have any really hospitality clients, but agencies could work with like, okay, you have a soup that's incredible. Why don't we figure out a way to package this soup, right?
Right.
Why don't we figure out how to get this sauce or whatever those items are, and we productize, your offering. I didn't see a whole lot of that, and maybe it's happening behind the scenes, and I'm just not in the loop. But those are the ways to look differently at your problem. I know it's not immediate. This is the thing that we need to solve right now, but that is something that creates a ton of social engagement as you begin sharing that journey and that path that you're moving toward. Also figuring out, what you need to do now, even from a catering level as well.
Yeah, I spoke to someone actually about that. I was trying to look into get into Publix, and so my brain instantly went to, you can't just jump into Publix. Like, go find some independent grocery stores. Go find, some smaller chains. Like, Publix is here in Florida is by far the #1 grocery store, and you're not getting into Publix for just saying, oh, I've got good soup. You need to. Can you provide enough soup for the whole state? Can you?
Boy, it starts with one store trial. Yeah, they're amazing at what they do because they've taken the steps to do it in such a way that it delivers on their promise. So yeah, you're not going to win at night. It's going to be very, very stepped.
But if I was a local mom and pop restaurant, I would be like, where's the independent grocery stores? Where's the convenience stores.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Corner stores. Yeah. Corner stores. Or set up something on, like, go to, like, a market, get a corner with, get a city permit and a sign with your own little hot dog stand or whatever.
Or start a new service, like a weekly. If I'm an Italian restaurant and you want homemade sauce, I'm going to deliver you a frozen, container of sauce that you can use throughout the week. And
so here on The Climb, give us all your restaurant concerns and questions. We're ready to answer those.
I'm just saying, like, I could create so many ideas that people would gravitate towards. I mean, I purchase a bi-weekly farm box and I love it. And if I'm a restaurant and I serve a unique food that's, I say Italian, and let's say you're known for your sauce, you said soup. I mean, if you're known for something, package it up, sell it as a service, and deliver it. That's a great idea.
But I think this is an important, bringing it back to the planning side. There should be in the assessment phase, looking at, like, okay, well, what are the things that we can do, right? What are the things that we want to do this year? Do we want to offer more services? Because there's some study that out there, I don't know, which, like, the things that are data driven, but there's also essentially from decisions, but there's also, like, all right, what do you want to do as a company? Do you want to offer another service? Can you support that, based on some of these ideas? Do you want to package your own sauce? Do you want to, create your own t-shirt designs as a design company and then post those on your website to sell?
So aren't we real? I mean, so I just thought of this, and this is what differentiates, a small time business owner to somebody that's really trying to grow a business. I mean, the reason why most of these restaurant tours aren't going these routes is because they're too busy working in their business. They're not working on their business. So they're not planning. They're not coming up with those things. They're too busy worried about getting orders out or cooking or, being inside the business, that they're not sitting back and going, all right, how do we pivot, the aircraft carrier, the saying of trying to turn an aircraft carrier. It takes time and planning, but you have to, as a business owner, be able to have time to think about.
And I think that key word there is worry, right? So if it's exhausting you to all ends, then maybe this is something that's not for you. Maybe you need to figure out how to merge with somebody else, or you need to, there's nothing wrong with being an employee and working for somebody else. You can get out of this business, right? So I think those are things to look at. If you're worried all the time, that is a bad state of affairs. And that is something that you really need to take a hard look at.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you have any by the numbers?
I don't know if that's a thing that we're going to keep going.
I don't think it's survivable. Yeah, mine either. The Siracus topic. I think it's didn't get any feedback on it, but I think this was a great episode based on planning and our planning in the future. We can do a little separate one on planning the future of the podcast, where we can talk about, do we want to do those things? And I know we've had some of the discussions on it.
We've got 12 minutes left in the show, and I think we just use that to just kind of open up the discussion. I mean, if we got any questions out there from the live audience, feel free to kick them in. For this podcast, we took it live. I think overall, let's just talk about, I think the live format works. Right?
Yeah. I think the live format works. I like it. Yeah. And, with viewership, there was a really well-known guy. His name's escaping me right now. He was on LinkedIn, and he was doing a live thing, and he only had I think I was one of three or four viewers on there. So it's interesting, the live dynamic, and then also publishing it on other platforms such as podcast, YouTube, and Facebook.
Bring back the Siracus topic.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a biased request on that one, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I think what we could talk about right now for the last 10 minutes in the most positive way is awards, right? So we were awarded today, and I think based on awards, we do a lot of this on our marketing services for other companies. We do it for ourselves. It's really important. At the end of the day, recognition works internally for your team as well as externally, because it communicates what you're capable of doing and essentially what was done. So I think agencies need to have more of a focus on this, creating a catalog of awards that you can get, whether it's through design, web design, you got, Webbies, whether it's, on the essentially the other agency side, Effies, Lions, the pencils. There's all types of awards. I think pencils is actually kind of like a Hall of Fame, to be honest with you. But anyway, there's a whole list of awards that you can achieve. We got, Jacksonville, where we're headquartered. We have 2 offices. We got the Fast 50 up there. And the best way to say this, there's some of these are like beauty pageants, but if you win them, it helps internally and externally, as I mentioned. Some of those awards that I mentioned these are huge successes, right? But at the end of the day, it's not like T-ball. Everybody doesn't get an award. So it is something that is a differentiator that will distinguish you from somebody else. And my advice to you is apply for every single one of them. If you're an agency, just apply for every single one of them. It's something that you can brag about. Look at that. Yeah, David Plugin there got a little cheetah on there, the Fast 50 logo. But apply for every single logo. Don't be afraid of losing, and make sure that you nominate your clients and your other colleagues, because there's this togetherness, this abundance thinking that at the end proves to be something positive. And hell, we've had 4 or 5 other clients we've got into the Inc. 5000 list. I'm super stoked that we made it this year.
I was just going to say the most important thing that we did is how many clients did we get on the Inc. 5000? Now, that to me is like the best award, is how many of our clients did we put on the Inc. 5000 list? Like, that's incredible.
Yeah. No, that's something that is exciting. But I think
that should be the headline we brag about, really.
I tried that back in the day. I mean, it didn't resonate like I wanted it to. And then yeah. And the other thing too is, when you get awards like this could be an excuse to get away from it. Your junk mail explodes.
It does. It does, but still, it's
good. It's worth the pain.
Exciting. Like like I told my brother-in-law, he shared our announcement and gave us a shout out. I was like, hey, even on our 40s, we're still chasing trophies. And
it's wins, man. Everybody loves wins.
Yeah, the days of earning trophies, you thought were done when you were in your 20s, but now it's just a different type of trophy. So yeah, I like it. I think it's, like I said, we're installing shelves in our main space that you walk right in. I want every employee to see the awards that we've won. I want clients to see it. These are not mine.
They're not mine. Track lighting.
Yeah, they're not in. The thing that makes these more important is they're not individual awards. It's a team award. It's not. John came up with the greatest marketing campaign, so this one campaign won an award, right? These are the Inc. 5000 is a total company, total team award that says you guys are growing as a team, and I love that. But to go from 0, not on the list, to 2,536, like smack dab in the middle, that's awesome.
Yeah,
just awesome.
Yeah,
way higher than I
collective.
Way higher than
that's true. And another thing to that with the awards, we had a contest where we had team members essentially predict where we would be on the list. And so I love everybody that had us like in the, the top, like 10%. That's awesome. And to those that had us in the bottom 10%, we're watching you a little harder.
Congrats to Tyler.
That's right. Yeah.
Gift card winner and pizza winner.
That's true. What do we give a gift card, and then it was a local pizza. Like
pizza of his choice.
Pizza his choice. Just one pizza from local though, right? We wanted to make sure we weren't flying it in from Brooklyn or Chicago. Yeah. All right. Well, I think this has been a solid episode. I know we're coming up on time here. Everybody that put a comment in there, including my lovely wife, thank you so much. And please check out digitalmastermind.com. Shoot me an email, john@digitalmastermind.com, with any questions. Even if you're a restaurateur or restaurant owner, we'll work them into the show somehow. Just wanted to thank you so much. And if you have any planning concerns, go ahead and fire those over as well. We'd be happy to chat about those. That's actually what our group is best at, throwing those types of questions into our Slack room and having everybody comment and share on those. So thanks again, everybody. Take care. Bye now.